Ready for more? All right, here we go. Well, as we consider our theme of care for our common home, it's important also that we think about how our fraternities are part of our common home. And so I've spent some time over the last couple of weeks, couple of months maybe, looking for different ways that we can reflect on co-responsibility for our fraternities. And I wanted to start with a story. The story is about Brother Maceo. So Brother Maceo had been watching Francis for days and was intrigued. He could not understand why the populace rushed to his companion. And one day, as they walked in silence, he asked this critical question for the first time. Why you? Francis did not understand the question and continued in silence. After a while, he raised his voice and asked him once again, why you and not someone else? What do you mean by that, Brother Maceo? Francis asked. Francis of Assisi, I don't understand anything. What don't you understand, Brother Maceo? Look, he replied, according to worldly standards, there is no reason why you, Francis of Assisi, should attract so much attention. You're not handsome. Why does everyone want to look at you? You're not eloquent. Why does everyone want to hear you? You're not educated. Why does everyone seek your advice? Why then does the entire world turn to you when there is absolutely no reason why they should? What's your secret? What makes you so fascinating? Francis was visibly moved on hearing these words. Never have such words of wisdom been pronounced on the face of the earth, said Brother Francis. Tell me, Brother Maceo, where did you acquire so much knowledge? Who inspired those astute observations? He knelt on the ground, wanting to kiss Brother Maceo's feet, but the brother did not permit him to do so. Brother Francis lifted his eyes to the heavens and said, Thank you, Almighty Father, for revealing great truths to transparent souls. And then he directed his words to Brother Maceo. You want to know why everyone comes to me? I'll tell you. To confuse. Oh, Brother Maceo, the Almighty Father, who is love and mercy, has 1,000 eyes with which to penetrate all the cracks of the human soul. He looks beyond the surface. Where there is darkness, he will see the light. Well, those almighty eyes have circled the earth and have failed to find a more incompetent, useless, ignorant fool. This is the reason why he chose me, to manifest to everyone on the face of the earth that the only marvelous one is the Lord. If Francis of Assisi were handsome, eloquent beyond compare, schooled in the classrooms of Bologna, possessed of the wisdom of angels, people would say, it's his beauty, it's his wisdom, it's his eloquence. But when he is lacking in these qualities, people are obliged to come to the following conclusion. It is the Lord. Wouldn't it be wonderful if everyone could see that in our fraternities? Isn't it amazing when we work together and we work so well together that despite our many imperfections, we provide a way for someone else to see the Lord. We're all called to take part in showing the world around us who Jesus is by following the path of Francis and Claire. I heard a saying once that God doesn't call the qualified, but that God qualifies the called. So I want you to think for a moment about what were the qualities of the secular Franciscans when you decided to sign up. What was it that brought you into that community? What were the aspects of those people? What did you see that made you want to stay? Any answers? Friendliness. Ken?
Humility and service.
Humility and service.
Joy.
Joy. Peter.
Enthusiasm.
And enthusiasm.
Persistence.
Oh, persistence. I like that.
Love.
Love.
Dedication.
Dedication.
Holiness.
And holiness. Wow, holiness too. I like that. I'm always hopeful.
Friendship and inspiration.
Friendship and inspiration.
Not the outside, the inside.
Say yours again.
Not the outside, but the inside.
Not the outside, but the inside. And
Sharing.
sharing. Ken? Oh, spiritual food too. Okay. Spiritual food and nourishment. Okay. All right. I am all about the food. That's, yeah. Where there are cookies. Well, I have to tell you, the secular Franciscans who came to Cardinal Stritch University 8 years ago in March, well, they were a motley crew. One of them's in the back of the room now. And yet, through their motley crewness, I saw in them the Lord. And that was what pulled me in. I saw them and the qualities in them that were all of these things that you've mentioned. Except I don't know if you brought us food, Ken. Did you bring us food? Yeah. Okay, F- on the food part. Oh, okay. Well, that'll make up for it. But I saw in them the Lord, and I know that that's what you saw as you described these qualities of the brothers and sisters that pulled you into the Franciscans. I went to a national gathering of, it was a workshop for regional formation directors, and one of the subjects that we talked about was belonging, and how we are to live as brothers and sisters of all people in creation, so it goes back to that kinship model. And belonging gives us collective wisdom. There's wisdom in the group, which is why we come together as brothers and sisters. Belonging gives us identity. We belong to an order in the church. And we're not a contemplative group, though we might partake in contemplative prayer. We're not a group that only comes together once a month to socialize, but a group that goes out to do service in God's world to God's people as a gospel example. Our identity is a gift from God, and it's demonstrated by that radical interior change, that change that happens, that metanoia, that intimate conversion of our hearts. That we're not about doing penance, but being penitent. So if we take a look at our general constitutions, we find this word co-responsibility in there. They talk about how we are to live out our belonging in this order. So co-responsibility. The brothers and sisters are co-responsible for the life of the fraternity to which they belong, and for the OFS as the organic union of all fraternities throughout the world. And in case you want to take notes and check that later, that's Article 30.1. That's in really small letters down at the bottom of the General Constitutions. So the first thing it says is we are co-responsible. We are all responsible. By design, we're meant to take responsibility for our fraternities. And we need to think about how we can make use of words like this as part of our gatherings, using the constitutions, using these articles to examine what they say. So I'm wondering, how do you share things like this, articles from our general constitutions, in your gatherings? I mean, I know we learned about them when we went through initial formation, or at least I hope we did. I know they were mentioned here and there, but do we continue to use those words? Are there any particular plans in people's formation programs, that an ongoing formation? Yes?
We try, like for, I mean, just a initial formation, we try to include all members are invited, not just the formation team. The same thing with our ongoing formation, who's gonna do the prayer leading, who's gonna do the, whatever, be in charge of the inevitable food.
Right. And the food, right?
So I mean, I think those are just really common, I think most of the fraternities here that I'm aware of do the same kind of thing.
So demonstrating the co-responsibility in that way. Ken?
We're going to begin, at least I'm going to be encouraging them again, pretty much a consensus to review not only the rule, but the Constitution and statutes. I feel strongly that they haven't been emphasized enough, that we all know what they are and what they do to support our role in carrying out the living of the rule. You can't just know the rule. This is like the rule is the bread, but all of this is the jelly and the meat, the lunch meat, the peanut butter that adds to it to make it a much healthier way of living the rule.
It's a serious sandwich. Well, and I think it's really important that we do that we look at what do the general Constitution say, because I think we kind of forget that they're there, and we present kind of general ideas of what it means to be a Franciscan, but every once in a while we need to come back to this and figure out what do the articles say, what is the content there. I mean, because you know that someone spent a lot of time putting these things together, a lot of thought and a lot of prayer into what each of these words says, what it describes that we're doing. And if there's a way for us to bring that in, to remind everybody of the different parts, and we don't even have to own a book that has it. We can go to the internet, we can look at the website for the National Fraternity, the NAFRA website, and it has that information there for us, and we can print out on a couple of pieces of paper what the Constitution said. So we do a lot of things together that demonstrate our co-responsibility, whether it's leading initial formation together and participating, bringing food, doing different things. But there are many, many different activities that different people can take part in. There's planning, there's organizing, there's collecting resources, making phone calls, gathering instructional materials, writing reports, going to district meetings, going to chapter meetings, doing the banking, keeping the records for the fraternity. There's so many different roles. And to get a group together to do some kind of activity, it takes everybody participating. It takes co-responsibility. Here we have a group that went on the St. Ben's Community Meal Program walk in Milwaukee. We gathered ourselves together. We made a sign. We worked together. We collected funds. All these things that are part of that took co-responsibility. So back to our constitutions. It says that we should do some things. It says the sense of co-responsibility of the members requires personal presence, witness, prayer, and active collaboration in accordance with each one's situation and possible obligations for the animation of the fraternity. And again, just in case you're taking notes, that's Article 30.2. So, personal presence, well, we can do that. We can be there. Witness, prayer, active collaboration. I like the active collaboration part, especially. But note that the words say, in accordance with each one's situation. So we know this. St. Paul talks about it, about how we all have different gifts. We bring those gifts to our fraternity. So in accordance with our situation, we share the gifts that we have so that we can help our fraternity grow, and we can bring others into our fraternity, and so that we can go out and serve the world, so that we have a body of people that goes out to serve. Steve Jobs told a story once about a neighbor of his. Then that helps us to understand a little bit more about co-responsibility. So here's Steve Jobs from Apple, his story. He says, when I was a young kid, there was a widowed man that lived up the street. He was in his 80s. And I got to know him a little bit. I think he paid me for mowing his lawn. And one day he said to me, come into my garage. I want to show you something. And he pulled out this dusty old rock tumbler. It was a motor and a coffee can and a little band between them. And he said, come on with me. We went out to the back and we just got some rocks. Now he didn't have Lake Superior rocks, but that's okay. He got some rocks and they were just regular old ugly rocks. And we put them in a can with a little bit of liquid and a little bit of grit powder, and we closed the can up, and we turned the motor on, and he said, come back tomorrow. And the can was making this racket while the stones were clanking around in it. And I came back the next day, and we opened the can, and we took out these amazingly beautiful, polished rocks. The same common stones that had gone in through rubbing against each other and through creating a little bit of friction, creating a little bit of noise, had come out these beautiful polished rocks. That's always been in my mind a metaphor for a team working really hard on something they're passionate about. It's through that team, that group of people bumping up against each other, and having arguments and making some noise and working together that they polish each other and they polish ideas. And what comes out are these really beautiful stones. So Francis spent a lot of time with his brothers, kind of bumping up against each other and sharing ideas and working to polish each other. But he also took some time away from large groups and went into smaller settings. Francis often had time in quiet away from the crowds. All over his area of Italy, there are these little sites where Francis frequented in order to have quiet prayer. There's La Foresta, there's Greccio, La Verna, the Carceri on Mount Subasio. I got to spend some time at a few of these places, and they're beautiful, and you can really feel that sense of being separate from the craziness of what's in town. But Francis didn't go alone. Even though these were secluded, quiet places, he didn't go all by himself. He planned for his time away to be with some of his brothers. And he even set out expectations for how things would operate in a hermitage setting. So, what does Francis say about co-responsibility? What are we to do? I gave you a copy of the Rule for Hermitages, and I want you to take a look at it for a couple minutes and then discuss with the people around you what kinds of things he says we have to do that are co-responsible things. And I actually have some questions, and hopefully you can see these. Who is responsible for what? Are they responsible all the time? And what kinds of activities are demonstrated in this rule? So go ahead and take a look at that for a moment. Does everybody have a copy?